Welcome to another episode of the Move, Talk, Thrive podcast. Today, Emily and I are talking about apps. We're going to unpack what makes a good app for parents to take up at home and how we really analyze whether we can recommend apps in our therapy and parenting. All right, let's get into this episode and look at the different apps and how we can really determine if they are helping our kids.
We are child development obsessed, business besties, and mums, and we're here to spill all our secrets.
We have a combined 30 years experience working with children, and each episode we will bring you up-to-date research and evidence-based strategies to set your children up to thrive.
I'm Lizzy Dawson, Australian exercise physiologist.
I'm Emily Mackie, Australian speech pathologist,
and this is the Move, Talk, Thrive podcast.
Oh, controversial. I feel like it's controversial because we're going to talk about screen time, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Screen time is controversial in mum circles. I feel like since moving to the Central Coast, just checking my mics on. Since moving to the Central Coast, I've been looking at all these different play groups to join, and I feel like some play groups are either like for screens and for apps and for technology, and you go to the play group and they've got all these different types of toys and different types of screens and iPads. And then you have the other extreme where these play groups are like, we are totally nature-based. We are screen-free. We are all about taking kids back to their roots. And it's just like so, it's controversial, like you said, but it's, what are they? Opposite ends of the scale.
Yeah. It's controversial, isn't it? Because I think that there's so much on screen time and like what is recommended on screen time. There's apps that are obviously going to be helpful for children. I'm like, my kids are on a heap of apps at school. But it's also inevitable that children need to know how to use technology because everything we do is like, it's so advanced now. I feel like I'm 42, almost 43, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't keep up with all of this. Like, I'm an oldie.
I know. I struggle to keep up with all the different AIs, and people are like, oh, bring this into your clinic, do this, do that. And I'm like, like it just takes so much time to investigate each one, and there's so many. It's like, where do you start? And I guess that's the reason we're having this conversation, because we obviously experience that in business, but then parents experience that. As speechies, they'll come to us and say, okay, so what's the best app for reading? What's the best app for spelling? What's the best app for getting my child to talk and increase their vocabulary? What's the best app for fun or engagement? That's or learning. It's like a question that I have had in the business from the day dot I opened the business 11 years ago. And I remember I put together a document which had like, the best apps under each area. And I put it in our waiting room. And then literally like 2 weeks later, I was like, that is completely outdated.
That's
you just can't put anything together like that because technology is rapidly changing so quickly.
Yeah.
You can't.
Interesting because we were talking just before this, and we don't really get questions around apps because I don't know. It's really interesting because I guess what we're practicing, and I've obviously got an online program, and that's definitely something that I've seen that we, to replace TV, to do something fun at home. But it's not something that we see, like we get asked about a lot, but I get why it would be with speech.
Yeah, and I get why it's not with movement because people traditionally think, well, movement is like an outsider, and it's a physical activity, whereas an app is sit down. I remember I did your program with Evie when she was little,
right.
The Mums and Bubs one, but that was during
right.
COVID.
Yeah.
So, during that, I think we'd just come out of like a really interesting season in the world because we had, not a lot of screen time. And then we went into COVID where there was maximum screen time for kids. That's how they were learning, even with getting on the online classroom. And
Yeah.
now it's sort of gone back and people are like, what do we do? Because kids get so easily into routine and habits, right? You can't just be like, right, no screens now after you've had screens for 3 years.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah, and I also like I find different kids respond really differently as well. And I feel like maybe even it's better for some kids than others. Like I have two boys, very different boys. Marley is very active. He more recently, so he's 5 turning 6, and he more recently is interested in the iPad. We have like a YouTube ban, but
Hmm.
I don't know how we've taken it off the iPad so many times, and he finds his way on there. He watches like motorbike riding, which is not like super bad, but I have noticed like more recently, I feel like he's like really wants the iPad all the time, and it's not kind of aligned to his nature, which is it kind of feels weird for me. Whereas Flynn, he is not a natural mover. He's much more calm and grounded, and like he's a homebody. So he's not like energetic and moving all the time. And he loves his Nintendo. And and I feel like he will end up being in IT or like drawn, like he's just drawn to it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting how I feel differently about the two kids, because I feel like he's genuinely interested. Like he's doing Minecraft, so he's creating stuff on there. He's like said to me he wants to create YouTube videos. And I'm like, no, no, no. But like it's really interesting, like how he's drawn to it from a different, it's like from a different, I don't know, perspective maybe, like than Marley is not that way inclined, but he's doing it because it's there.
I think it comes back to like maybe is it personality or your interests, which your likes and dislikes, and then that sort of then draw like um is a navigation into your career and things. So that's sort of what you're trying to say. Like they're
Yeah.
showing those tendencies very early on.
Yeah. Like I just feel because I'm a bit anti, like I'm anti gaming and iPads. I don't I don't really know why. Like just in me, I'm just like, but I'm like Marley, right? So he's quite similar to me, and I'm not into it myself. I know that there's, recommendations around it. I'm sure there's lots of research around it. It's not good for our children, but I mean, well, that's what we're, kind of led to believe. But I, yeah, I feel differently with Flynn because I feel like he's actually really interested in more than like the addiction part. Like he's quite interested in it, you know, from a larger perspective, I guess.
That's interesting. You're probably a bit further along than I am. Like you can comment because you see those observations, whereas Isabel's still so little. She's only 2, so it's hard to see. But I guess that is like there's pros and cons with everything, right? And so the cons are some of our as parents, like our worst fears, like addiction, like you said. And that is obviously a con. However, I heard recently that gaming is now an Olympic sport. So there's national competitions, and the gamers are some of the most wealthiest people in the world. And so, there is a pro, I guess, to it in that
Yeah.
regard, because
And
that's like all of us.
I didn't actually read the research, but I saw somewhere that they were talking about like the brain activation during gaming it was quite positive. And I'm sure it depends on the game that they're playing or what they're doing, but I can't remember what it was comparing it to, but I was like, oh wow, maybe it's not as bad, because I'm like, no, I hate it. Get off the Nintendo. But yeah, I think there's obviously room for it. I think we need to be open to it. I think it's a really important conversation because it is amongst us. It's a big part of kids' social life
And
now.
school, it's a part of the curriculum at school that kids learn to code. We went to an open day for Evie, like back a few years ago, and the kindy kids all had their laptops out and we're looking at a giant smart screen. And I said to the teacher, what are they doing? And she said, they're learning how to code. And that was in kindy. So it's very much a part of our reality, very much a part of our world, isn't it? Or our children's world, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, where are you at with recommending apps? Do you recommend apps like from a parent's perspective? I'm quite interested in what you
Mm.
are recommending in terms of apps for reading.
Yeah. Well, like personally, my kids don't have an iPad yet. I realize we do very little screen time, and that wasn't really a conscious thing. We didn't set out to be like, no screen time, but try and make that a priority with myself because I feel like constantly I can be on my phone and on my computer, which would sort of be my iPad. And I'm very conscious to not have that, be modeling that to the children all the time and to have really clear boundaries with my phone. So I think as well, I've never been one to just give Evie the phone when I've had a hard situation. I always would go to the books, the craft, and I understand that she is like a girl, so she's not like I know boys are super different, but she will sit, she will color, she will read, she will do a creative activity. So every time I've had to engage her, I always take books and stuff and I'm prepared. Even with
Yeah.
Isabel, she has to sit for an hour of watching Evie's gymnastics and she'll color. And
Yeah.
I always have different activities. And I have an activity pack, which I'll just take out wherever we go. So I realized that recently. I'm like, oh, my kids don't have an iPad. Like, oh, and then I started questioning and going, should I get them an iPad? Should we
That's
be
not
doing
weird
stuff?
though. I think it's weird that we feel weird about it because my kids only got an iPad last year.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just something that um maybe that's our values, right? Like we just have just done that naturally.
Yeah.
And then we've gone, oh, okay, we need an iPad for whatever, for school or whatever. And so, because I spoke to Evie's school and they're like, they all get a computer from year three, like every single one. And then from
Wow.
kindy to year three, it's then in the laptops stay in the classroom, but they do lessons. So, as a therapist, so this as a parent, and then as a therapist, I am kind of the opinion at the moment, and obviously my kids are little, but we have to have smart time,
Mm,
not screen time.
mm,
And because, like we've just discussed, it's the way it is. And we don't even know what the world's going to be like in 10, 20 years' time. Like when you said when Flynn is older, the jobs and the careers that will exist then don't exist now. Like we won't even know the jobs that our children potentially might take because they'll be created through technology and technological advancements. So, my perspective as a therapist is, like you said at the start, we do have to train our children how to navigate technology, how to have safety and boundaries, and like we said, boundaries for themselves. So
exactly.
and that comes back to personal development skills,
Yeah.
which is mindset around things, priorities, values, why you do what you do. And, um, you know, we're talking about technology, but then we're going to specifically talk about apps, I guess, because that's what seems to be the trend with parents. They go, what apps should I do? And I
Mm,
don't recommend any specific apps to parents at the moment because technology is always changing. And say, for example, an app like Reading Eggs, which parents always ask about, um, there's now conflicting programs that are coming out saying we've got better reading methods than reading eggs and things, but that doesn't mean reading eggs is any less valid. You have thousands of testimonials of parents that have said reading eggs has helped me and helped my
mm,
child, and it's helped me have smart time, not screen time. So I'm going, well,
mm.
it's in that way, it's really up to the parent. However, what we have found recently, or what I've found recently, is some research which was published uh 2024, October 2024, so not too old, where people developed a rubric for evaluation of apps for learning. So, what I am all doing now is equipping parents with this rubric and information to go, you need to decide whether this app is appropriate for your child or not. However, these are the high standards that we can look for when we're choosing an app. And the higher the standard of the app, the better it's going to be for learning. And I feel like it's empowering parents and clinicians. Like we as clinicians need to know how to choose apps to do in therapy as speechies, but then we need to empower parents to make the decisions because, like we said, apps are changing every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So an app I recommend today might be not good tomorrow.
And you know what? Some of these apps, like apps are just basically businesses, right? So some of these apps are going to have loads of funding and really good marketing. And who knows what I heard about the gaming and the brain, the brain activation, that could have been a marketing ploy from
Yeah, there you
one of these
go.
companies that sparked something in my brain. Because I think at the end of the day, we need to really investigate it ourselves and equip ourselves with the skills to determine whether these apps are good for our children and whether we want to bring it into our home and, go down that path. We need to be able to make that decision, not
Mm.
just follow the herd or buy into some marketing, because I think that they're going to be very, very clever. We know that, right?
Yes. And we actually have had a few chats in our speech pathology groups because there have been speech pathology apps popping up that are not written by speech pathologists, that are not written by anyone but businesses like tech people. And you know that they're techie people because their marketing is really unethical. And marketing, I feel like it's empty promises to parents. And I understand what it's like to be a parent, to be so desperate and you're like, I just want my child to achieve. I will pay whatever it takes. I'll pay whatever, I'll do whatever it takes. And so if an app then comes up on Facebook and it's like, this app will get your child to talk, parents go, yep, I'm going to buy it. But so even in that, right? I get spammed and I'm a speechy with poor marketing and advertising for speechy apps. I have enough discernment to be like, that's not legit. That can't, that's like an overarching promise that's not going to happen. However, how does a parent know that? And so this research paper that we found that we want to just briefly touch on actually equips parents with the tools to do that and equips you as a clinician to do that and doesn't name specific apps. It's more just decision making.
So good. Love it. All right, let's
Yeah.
talk through.
So this article is called Get Real, REAL, and that's the name of the rubric. And it's called Development and Validation of the Rubric for the Evaluation of Apps for Learning. It was published in Asha Wire, October, 3rd of October 2024. What we will do is we will put the link to the article below. And it is closed access. However, if you're a student or got access to the journal, you'll be able to get it. But what I do have is the rubric that they developed
And
from
that's
the
the juicy
study.
part.
That's the juicy part. So we will put that in the show notes for you. And I think educate yourself and start scoring apps. So it had the rubric is broken up into educational content, which is important, design and technical characteristics, and functionality. And so you can then score the app there's a sheet at the end, which you can score to figure out of 100, is this app worthwhile or is going to help my child with their learning? I Yeah, I want to talk to you, Lizzie, because obviously what an app's trying to do, or I would think a proper legit app is trying to help children achieve their goals. So that's a
Yeah.
similar goal to therapy, right?
Yes.
So if we can replicate some of our therapeutic principles into an app, that would be helpful, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, and we could even, expand the conversation and talk about how we're getting children to, get that repetition from the therapy at home, because it's the same sort of principle. And if we can find apps that are going to help us do that, it's going to get better outcomes for us, right? For the
Absolutely. And
children,
so this
like
is
for
the
the
thing.
children.
I think as therapists, if we can know what our principles are that we're doing in therapy, which we've talked about a lot on the podcast, and then see if apps match that. So I like in this rubric, because under educational content, it says, what is the motivation and engagement? How many times have we talked about that on the
Mm.
podcast? Like how important it
Mm.
is to motivate children and engage them. And that's like build rapport with them.
Hmm.
So it has 4 levels. So it has, you can rate an app as unsatisfactory or poor, 2 needs improvement, 3 good quality, and 4 exemplary. And so obviously you're wanting to aim for exemplary. So you can have a look at an app as a parent and go, it says here the app offers multi-tiered customizable rewards that incentivizes a child to meet individual goals. So I love the fact that it says individual goals there.
Yes.
And it's multi-tiered and customizable. So what does that look like in many different apps? For children, it has to be unique to them, which is what we like to do in therapy, right?
Yeah, this is actually really good because I'm like looking at what I've created as my online program, and I'm like, oh, this is where maybe I'm missing a few things.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
also great because it's like a what is it? A syllabus, not a
Yeah.
syllabus. What do you use at
Well,
uni? The learning outcomes or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like it
Yeah, it's
tells you
good.
what the standard is, what the gold standard is. I love in the educational content, it says error correction and feedback provision. We
Yeah.
know that feedback is so important to
Yeah.
children's progress
Yeah.
and that promotes change. So it says is exemplary would be the app provides consistent instructional feedback for most activities with support to improve the child's
Love
skills.
it.
So it has to provide
Yeah.
instructional feedback. If
Yeah.
the app is not, then it don't touch it.
Yeah.
It's not going to help your child's learning.
I wonder how many of these apps actually do that. Like I'm thinking of reading eggs. My Flinny does reading eggs, like that's part of school. That gives, oh, I don't know, the child improve the child's skill. Yeah, it does. Like because it'll say a sound and then you have to like click it and then it'll tell you if you're wrong. Like that's feedback.
So it says here that then level 3 on that needs improvement would be the app provides limited feedback, e.g., correct versus incorrect, but no elaboration for some
Mm.
activities and no opportunities to retry the skill. Would it
Yeah.
be that?
Well,
Maybe you could go a level up where it
yeah.
provides limited feedback and provides opportunities to retry the skill.
Yes, yes. And I think, the apps that we're getting through the school, like that's recommended from Education Queensland. I'm sure that Education Queensland would go through this process.
Well, you'd hope so. You would
Sure.
hope so. I don't know. This article's only October last year.
Yeah,
It's
right.
very new, and I feel like the studies like this, like you can obviously look back at on the references section of this, to see other studies that they've pulled from and that sort of history and read that at the start. But I feel like it's still a fairly new area
Yeah, yeah. It's
for
interesting.
learning,
So
for learning.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, progress monitoring and sharing. That's important for us as speeches and EPs. We take data, we monitor, we get a baseline, we monitor how the child's
Yeah.
going. We then have, analysis of that. So,
Structure.
exemplary is it completes child progress monitoring and analysis, keeps child progress history, provides recommendations for instruction and projected growth.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it?
So, we need, and you can look then, and there's 3 other levels there. And you can sort of then go, well, this is what's going to help my child learn best. Does the app meet this or not?
Yeah. Oh, I
Um,
like this connection to future learning.
yeah, that's the
And the
next
next one,
one.
accommodation of individual learner differences. How good's that? So
Yes, and it
exemplary.
says
Yeah, you go.
the app uses 4 or more different instructional strategies to
Yes.
teach the target skill, which is what we would do in therapy. We would
Yeah.
if our child's not understanding a concept, like in the PLA, we do 4 instructional types with objects. We'll do toys, we'll do furniture, everyday items around us, so and more. So it's pulling therapeutic principles into a learning app,
Yeah.
which we know
I think
works. There's
this
research
stuff's
for that.
even, this is even relevant for therapy
Yes.
interventions. Like this is actually really good because it's talking about, this is the process of learning. This is what we need to be aware of. And so like I'm just looking at that and I'm like, oh, I need to show this to my team because they need to be providing alternative ways to present the same information because everyone's different. I mean, I think that
Mm,
intuitively as therapists we do that,
mm,
but I think when
mm.
you look at it in this way, that is quite powerful, isn't it?
Sometimes it's easier as well, like to have a template and then
Yeah.
you invent from the template rather than just coming up with it from your like from scratch.
Well, also, if you kind of go the next step, like this is not just going to be relevant for children, it's going to be relevant for practitioners that are learning. And so if we're giving
Yeah.
them all alternative ways to learn, one of those could be through frameworks and templates, right?
Absolutely. The amount of therapists that I speak to weekly and they're like, I just need a template for this. I just need a
Mm,
framework and I haven't been given a framework and I feel so lost, which is why
Whereas
everyone
some
loves the
people wouldn't
PLA.
learn that way. And
No.
I mean, it's exactly the same principles,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. But I like something like this just to start the brainstorming process, you
Yeah.
know, and it is backed by research. That was what the study was about to come up with this rubric. So we do have to have evidence-based practice like we spoke about last week as well.
Yeah.
Um, so this they then talk about design and technical characteristics and functionality. That's something that I haven't really like I have considered it, but not to the extent of this rubric. And I think it's really important to have this as part of our,
So
assessment.
important. Okay, so looking at this, like quality of design, exemplary would be layout is simple and clear, navigation is intuitive from first use, no visual or auditory distractions. Any speech output is clear and easy to understand. The app has great visual and auditory appeal. I mean, I think this is it's kind of self-explanatory, but if there's anyone out there that is really creative and looking at developing apps, this is kind of really relevant because I look at my journey of providing online courses and, online programs. My whole reason that I developed a whole new website was because my previous website was really, really clunky and it was not
Mm.
user friendly. So I just think like I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, this is so cool from a developer perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and I guess with the actual for speeches with the clinical school, when we're teaching children, we teach them with objects and then pictures with language. And
Mm.
so I love that it says no visual or auditory distractions because that's what we build up to in therapy. And that's like some of our step ups and step downs. And I have a whole picture module on how you use pictures in therapy because a lot of people just don't understand visuals and how to actually make them work for children. So I love that they incorporate this to think about that
Yes, that is,
because it's so
yeah, I think this
important.
is, like we said, so relevant for therapy anyway, because
Yes.
visuals is something that, because we work with all different age groups, like we'll go into centers and we'll do nursery, TODS, junior kindy, senior kindy, for example. So you're going from, 1-year-olds through to 5-year-olds. Those Todd's, the 2 to 3-year-olds, we have to have visuals. We
Mm.
can't say
Hmm.
jump like a frog. We hold up and we're like, what's this? And like
Mm.
it is so incredibly helpful for engagement to have those visuals. So that's just so
Hmm.
it's just kind of so aligned in terms of teaching and working with children, isn't it?
Mm. Yes, it's like t saying what is important in therapy, replicate that in an app.
Yes, love it. Love it.
And the last thing is functionality, which talks about autonomy, instruction on app use, and configuration ability and flexibility within the app. So the one that I'm drawn to is the configuration ability and flexibility because
Mhm.
a lot of what we're talking about these days with children is neurodiverse children and
Mhm.
having neuroaffirming approaches. And the way that we do that is having choice and is having customizable things for our children. And so, exemplary here is at least three elements of configuration are available to change. Sound accessibility, so important for neurodiverse children. Color accessibility, again, so important in avatars, which would be your characters. But I love that the avatars are highlighted because imagination is so important for children and how they
Mhm.
learn. And so, it's promoting that creativity as a goal with them and helping them learn.
Yeah, totally. And being like engaging from that perspective as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, I hope we have convinced you to look at this rubric. I hope we have convinced you to put it into your, or take it back to your teams and talk about it in your workplaces and talk about it with parents and everyone you know who's putting their children in front of screens. We will put the link to this rubric below in the show notes. And then on the last page, it's got a checklist. So you can score each out of three. Three, two, or one, actually, and then you get a score out of 100. And so that is good for parents, I think, sometimes to have a number or a figure or something like that to help them decide, not just like, oh, does this match, does this not?
Yeah, totally. It kind of gives you almost more of a definitive distance in terms
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
decision. You're not relying on or having a value debate.
Yeah. And I mean, like we have said last week, there is always limitations to research. There's always gaps and there's always further research that can be done. So, but this is the most recent that we can pull on this topic and this subject. And I guess this is us putting into action, right? What we were speaking about last week, which was evidence-based practice. And, putting aside our personal beliefs, we obviously have our personal beliefs, we have what we do in our homes, but we also need to be clinicians who are well educated and well informed of what's happening. And we need to be able to provide our parents with answers to questions that they have. And this is a popular question. What apps do you recommend? So I hope we've got you thinking about what to recommend and how to recommend. And I would encourage you to choose an app that you use, whether it is for yourself, for a client, or your children, and put your app through this rubric and let us know what you get and if you've had any learnings about the app that you're doing, like Lizzy was doing with reading eggs. So we hope you love this episode. If you have loved it, can you please leave a review on the podcast channel that you're listening to? So Spotify or Apple, give us 5 stars, and then you can either write a little review for us. We love to read your comments. Until next week, have a lovely week.